Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. So it looks like it started again, guys. It has started again. So while we were distracted in the World Cup, all sorts of drama going on in the World Cup with the match with Argentina and Egypt, where Egypt were completely robbed and Argentina was sent through with dubious decisions. So it looks like the FIFA tournament is completely corrupt, and they are resorting to massive amounts of cheating. Completely destroyed the World Cup. I don't know who decided to put the World Cup in the United States. It was probably the leader of FIFA. What's his name? Infantino. What a silly name, guys. Infantino. Infant. So anyway, forget about the World Cup, guys. It's over. Looks like we've started having a war, and Iran has been hit severely today. So what happened? So United States were basically sneaking through ships through the Oman side of the border. As you know, the Hormuz Strait, the northern part is controlled by Iran. And what Iran did, they allowed Oman to control the southern part. However, Oman is not strong enough to control the southern part. So American ships found a weakness, and they've been, taking ships through the Oman border and sneaking ships through that way without paying the toll. So this is why I say that Iran should take control of all of the Hormuz Strait. They shouldn't really give Oman any control whatsoever. If Iran takes over the Hormuz Strait and they charge tolls, they can give a percentage of that money to Oman. That's the best way to do it. Anyway, four ships tried to sneak through, and Iran hit them. And they did warn them, by the way, and they were warned if they do not take the official route that they'll be blown up. But they didn't listen. Anyway, Trump was in, I believe, having a NATO meeting with Turkey, agreeing to some F-35 deal, and he basically went ahead with the attack on Iran. I'm pretty sure Erdogan knew about it because he was there. And in all this craziness, they shot down a Pakistani jet. As you can see, a Pakistani jet was flying through that particular area. And the US looks like they've shot it down because they probably thought it was an Iranian jet or something. So obviously we're going to get more details from this in the next few days. So it does look like the Americans did it, similar to how the Americans shot down an Indian tanker a few weeks ago, killed a lot of Indians. So definitely US had something to do with it. So Israel also started bombing Lebanon again because they saw an opportunity that this war has started again, so they're bombing Lebanon. Kiev is being blasted by Russia. So all hell's breaking loose, guys, all over the world. All hell is breaking loose. So here's the thing, guys. I do not think that Iran should do any more negotiations with the United States. I think they should just close the strait and just wait it out. Just do a tit for tat with the United States, start firing missiles at the bases, and destroy whatever American interest there is in the area. Start destroying AI data centers. Cut the cables under the sea. Really caused the Americans a lot of damage economically. And the oil is running out, guys. Oil is absolutely running out. So all they need to do is just close the strait and wait it out. And you will see America have an economic collapse within weeks. That is the best way to go ahead and do it. If Iran wants to be serious, they need to be like Russia, guys. Can you see that Trump tried to do the same thing with Russia? He tried to do a ceasefire with Russia. And everybody knows, Trump's ceasefire is a fake ceasefire. He doesn't take it seriously at all. So nobody should take it seriously. Russia shouldn't take it seriously. Iran shouldn't take it seriously. And the only way Iran can win is to drive out these demons from the surrounding areas of Iran. So America is forced to leave all these bases. This is similar to what happened in Afghanistan, where the Taliban drove out the Americans completely, and the Americans left 70-80 billion worth of military hardware in Afghanistan. So Afghanistan got all of that, military for free. So that's what Iran needs to do, guys. I mean, I understand they had to go through the ceasefire. I understand. End of the day, America and Israel do have escalation dominance in terms of they are the superpowers with nuclear weapons. When I say superpowers, I mean America is a superpower, and Israel is not a superpower, but they have nuclear weapons. So either of them have escalation dominance over Iran. So Iran had to, obviously go through negotiations. They cannot do that with Russia, obviously. Russia's got 6,000 nuclear weapons or what have you. So they cannot force a ceasefire with Russia. Russia will only do that if it's in their interest. However, I do think that Iran has something probably more potent than a nuclear weapon. They have the Hormuz Strait. They have oil price. They have control over America's economy. Because if they can keep the strait closed for a number of weeks, you will see the oil prices start going up again to like $100, $120. And then you will start seeing stocks and shares, collapse in the United States. You will see the yield prices, go through the roof. Already the Japanese yields are going crazy. I don't know if you guys have seen the Japanese yields. Japan is ready to have a massive economic collapse, guys. And I think what Japan's going to have to do is sell a lot of bonds, American bonds. And when Japan starts selling American bonds, that's when the yields for the American bonds are start going to go up. And then America will be forced to print more dollars and to buy their own bonds. That's going to cause more inflation. It's just a runaway train at the moment. There is no stopping it. And we all know this ceasefire was fake anyway. We all knew that. This MOU, the Americans have admitted it a few times. J.D. Vance had admitted it. We all knew this was going to be fake. But I understand Iran, they had to try end of the day. Nobody can say to them now that they didn't try. At least they've tried. As you can see, guys, the oil prices are shooting up again. So this is capitalism for you guys. This is capitalism going to war. I mean, United States has been at war for every single year of its existence except 17. So United States has been around for 250 years. So they have been at war for every single year, guys. Except 17 of those years where they had a bit of a rest. Apart from that, they've been at war throughout their existence. So somebody in my comment section, right? Somebody, I mentioned, I mentioned the fact that, some question about socialism or something. And somebody in my comment section said, in Cambodia, communism killed like 1 million people. So I asked him the question, okay, so how many people do you think capitalism killed? He couldn't answer. And so I answered it for him. I said, look at America's history. How many people have they killed throughout their history? Look at the British Empire. When British Empire went to India, that was capitalism. It was the East India Dock Company. They went to India to, obviously for capitalism, to make money, to further the empire. The slave trade was capitalism. They've stole all the treasures from India. They killed millions of people through famine. They killed millions of people in Africa through slave trade. They stole all the treasures from the mines. And what about the Europeans, the Portuguese, the Spanish, the French, the Dutch? They've all done the same thing, guys. Colonialism. They call it capitalism. Think about it, guys. Think about it. I mean, the game Monopoly, right? How many of you have you played Monopoly? I'm sure everyone has played Monopoly. But think about it. That game is pure brainwashing capitalism. So how do you win Monopoly? You win it by, you know, win it by, basically monopolizing everything. Let's just say the board is London. You win it by buying every house, buying every hotel, buying every, you know, utility company, and you buy everything. So you're the one that wins everything. You're the one that owns all of London, and everyone else gets nothing. That's capitalism for you. So one person becomes like billionaire, trillionaire, everyone else gets nothing. That's what they teach you at school. And have you noticed Monopoly? They have get out of jail free card. Why do they give you a get out of jail free card? Is if you start making lots of money, you can buy a get out of jail free card. Basically, you can buy your way out of jail. That's what he's trying to teach you. That board game. And the board game obviously shows that all the stuff that you're doing, monopolizing, buying everything, is illegal. That's why they have a jail sentence there. But when you go to jail, you can buy your way out. That's the game. That's capitalism for you. You get everything, everyone else gets nothing. And this is why they hate socialism. Because these elites, they don't pay any tax. They are getting richer and richer and richer. They don't pay any tax, guys. Do you know what they do? They have their wealth in stocks, in shares, in property, in art, and they don't have to pay any tax unless they sell. But they don't sell, they just borrow against it. So if you're Elon Musk and you have $1 trillion of shares in Tesla, SpaceX, you're not going to sell your shares to, make money. You're just going to borrow against your shares. So Elon Musk can borrow, let's just say $1 billion per year, and he can live off that. And he doesn't have to pay any tax. If you borrow against that money, you don't pay any tax. So this is how the rich are just getting richer and richer and richer, while the rest of us, we have to pay tax on everything. It's the middle class that's keeping the system alive. They are just eating the middle class. I've been thinking the last few years, guys, and I think that capitalism is not really capitalism. I think it's just usury. They call it capitalism, but I think it's, if you think about it, it's pure usury. This is the system that's banned in Islam and in Christianity. Usury, it's a J thing. Think about it. Think about it, right? It's usury, guys. When you buy a house, you pay a mortgage, you have to pay interest on your mortgage, and you become a debt slave for the rest of your life until you pay it off. If you want to get a car loan to buy a car, finance, you have to pay interest on your loan. Everything you do, you have to pay interest on top of it. And I think we don't really have a capitalist system. I don't think it's true capitalism. I think this is just usury in disguise. And the people that are getting rich are the ones at the top. And this is why Trump is, starting to attack communism again. He said, he said in his speech last week, out of nowhere, starts to attack communism. When communism is not even a threat. But what they're really scared of is they're scared of giving power to the people. Forget communism, but socialism is the real thing that they're scared of, where the people have the power and everybody is pretty much equal. So think about it, guys. If you play a game of Monopoly, one person wins, becomes a billionaire, owns all of London, everyone else gets nothing. So how is that winning? How is that equal? The real win for that game would be for everybody who plays in that board game to get an equal share of London. If one person becomes like billions and billions, hundreds of billions, what's he going to do with that money? That is money you just don't need to have a good life. It's much easier to share that money. So if there's 4 people playing, just share London equally in 4 parts. And everybody's happy. Everybody's got a share. Everyone's got a good life. You all become friends. That's how you win. It's a win-win situation. Not one person winner takes all. No sum game. I'm telling you guys, we're not playing capitalism anymore. We're just playing usury, all in disguise. I mean, think about it. Who owns the banking system? It's the Rothschilds. Who owns the Fed? The Rothschilds own the Fed. Look at the history of the Fed. Who created it? How it was created. The Fed owns that, guys. The banking in Britain, all of it is owned by the Rothschilds. City of London is all owned by the Rothschilds. They invented this capitalist system, but it's not really capitalist. It's actually usury in disguise. Think about it. I can do a whole video on it, but I'll let you guys research on it. If you want me to do a video on it, do some research and give you some stats, I can do that. But I'm sure you guys know that already. Anyway, let's move on, guys. Let's move on. So I want to talk about this story. All this talk about Muslims are taking over Sharia law and all of that in America. The Indians are taking over in America, guys. I mean, this woman, she's the Xbox CEO. She just fired 3,200 Americans. And guess what? She hired about 4,000, 5,000 H-1B visa from India this year. And the same thing happened in Microsoft. It's happening all over the tech business all over America. These CEOs are all turning out to be Indian. And what do? They get rid of the Americans and they hire their own kind, Indians, using H-1B. So there's a massive Indian takeover going on in the tech sector in all the countries, not just America, in Canada, in UK, all over Europe. While in the meantime, they are hating on Muslims and immigrants. They're saying, oh, they're the problem. While slowly, behind everyone's noses, the Indians are taking over. But the Indians are not, improving their own country in India. They are just literally taking over the West. They don't want to live in their country. They don't want to improve their own country. They want to take over the tech sector in the West and take control from there. I mean, this is just not the only story, guys. I'm seeing all the tech companies are literally hiring Indian CEOs. And they're hiring Indian CEOs for one reason only, to save money. And how do they save money? Yes, you guessed it. They hire H-1B visas because of their contacts in India. And they get loads of Indians to come over. They get rid of all the Americans. And the rest of the work, they give it to AI. That's how they save money. While everyone's got no jobs, these companies are still making a profit, and you can see the S&P 500 and their stock prices, they're going up. They're going up because they save money by kicking out people. They don't have to pay people salaries. If they can carry on, if the company can carry on moving with AI and cheap hire from India, save costs on salaries and all sorts, that stock price will keep going up because you've saved costs. That's why the stock market keeps going up, guys, despite job losses. Unbelievable. So let's talk about China. J.D. Vance actually said something. He said he's angry about the rise of China. He says he's angry about the rise of China, but he says, I'm more angry that the American leadership let it happen. I don't remember the American leadership letting this happen. I don't remember it at all. If you look at the history, they have always tried to contain China. Always. So let's look at the start of, when Chairman Mao took over China. There was huge sanctions from the West. All of the West, China was being sanctioned. China was not even allowed to have a seat at the UN. Guess which country took control over the seat of China? It was the island of Taiwan. They put the island of Taiwan as the seat for the UN, and they didn't even recognize China at that point. They were basically dealing with KMT in the island of Taiwan. And only a few countries recognized China. I think Pakistan was one of the earliest recognized, countries that recognized China. So this is why Pakistan and China are very close. But there's been an arms embargo over China since the 1980s. There's always been sanctions on China. China was not even allowed to be on the ISS, International Space Station. And people say that, they allowed China to join the WTO. Well, guess what? Guess what, guys? India was always at the WTO before China. There was a time when India and China had the same GDP. They had similar populations. They had a similar GDP. And then suddenly China took off. So why did China suddenly take off? And obviously joining the WTO did help, but China wasn't the only country in the WTO. Like I said, India was there and many other countries were there. So why didn't all the other countries take off at the same time? They didn't. It was only China that took off. And it's all down to hard work, dedication. China had very good leadership as well. And they decided to invest in education. They decided to invest in its people. They started bringing people out of poverty. They started putting all the money into infrastructure. They decided to put money into research. And they decided to build their own weapons and nuclear weapons, have their own security. And it also took a lot of bravery and a lot of blood as well. I mean, don't forget, China literally had hundreds of years of wars. And even after, the 1950s, when China was formed with the Communist Party, they've had major wars. They obviously had the Civil War. They had obviously the Second World War with Japan. They had the War of Korea. They had a small war with India. They had a small war with Vietnam. Then they had obviously the war in Vietnam with the Americans. So there has been a lot of blood and sweat for the Chinese people throughout the years. And obviously you got the 100-year humiliation as well. And that really pushed the Chinese to work harder to make sure that they never go through that kind of humiliation ever again. And it took great leadership as well. You got to put China had some really great leaders throughout its rise. Obviously Chairman Mao. Then they had Deng Xiaoping. Obviously President Xi as well. Even Zhu Jintao as well. He was pretty good. They had really good good leaderships. And by the way, guys, this bridge that you're looking at, well, guess what this bridge is? This is a historic moment for China. This bridge is going to connect China to the island of Taiwan. And people who don't realize, it's not just the island of Taiwan. Taiwan also has other smaller islands. And one of the smaller islands is called Kinmen. And obviously they still own that. But Kinmen is very close to the mainland, literally like 5-10 kilometers, very close. So this bridge basically connects Xiamen to Kinmen. And this is a very historic moment because this means that China mainland is now connected to the island of Taiwan. Not to the main Taiwanese island, but, the smaller island. So this is a historic moment, and they are saying that in the future there will be a mainland tunnel or a bridge joining the mainland to the main island of Taiwan. That is something they've been talking about. So anyway, going back to China, it's never been easy, guys. The West has been throwing sanctions and making life hard for China forever. I mean, a lot of you, I'm sure, will remember Trump's first term when he kicked out Huawei. He kidnapped Meng Wanzhou. He basically put all of these very difficult sanctions on China. They were not allowed to buy any, high-end semiconductors. Trump was basically trying to destroy China, basically. He was trying to cause an economic collapse. And it didn't work. China went back to the drawing board and figured out how to overcome all of these issues, especially with semiconductors. And now China has fought back, and now China has become a semiconductor hub. You know, like 10 years ago, guys, China was buying 300 and 400 billion dollars worth of semiconductors from US backed companies like America, from, you know, Micron, Intel, Qualcomm, and obviously TSMC as well, and also from Samsung. So they're spending about 400 billion. And because of all these semiconductor sanctions, now China is selling 300 to 400 billions worth of chips abroad, mainly to the, you know, global south, because the global south couldn't really buy the high-end chips from United States as well, because they were basically not allowed. You know, what the West does, they like to keep all the best chips for themselves, and they give the global south the, you know, 2 years behind generation, or 3 years behind generation, because they want to keep, they want to keep the global south backwards. They don't want to keep the global south, you know, same level as the West. So they always sell 2 or 3 generations behind on to the global south. They never sell them the latest chips. So now what's happening? China is now becoming a global superpower with semiconductors, and now China's selling chips all to the global south, and these chips are much better compared to the chips that the West sells them to. So China's main suppliers, but also the customers, are the global south, and also countries that have been sanctioned, like Russia, Iran, places like that, North Korea, just to give you examples. But most of the global south now buys it from China. Plus, there isn't any restrictions as well. So when the West sells, you know, semiconductors or technology to the global south, they have to do a lot of stuff for that. They gotta There's lots of conditions, for example. So if they sell semiconductors to a certain country, Americans will say, all right, what are you going to do for us? You have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do that. You have to give away your, you know, riches, your mines to us. You got to give this to us. You could give, you know, there's so many conditions. But China sells without any conditions. And this is why China is the biggest trading partner for majority of the countries around the world. 95% of the countries have China as the biggest trading partner, because China doesn't force any conditions. And this is why China's exports are increasing month by month, and United States exports is reducing month by month. So yeah, Mr. JD Vance, you're completely wrong. America didn't allow China to rise. China rose by itself, despite all of these challenges, despite all these wars that they pushed in the region, despite America trying to contain China. I mean, look at the first island chain, second island chain. Everything's done to contain China, and they've been trying to contain China since the 1950s, with sanctions, with other things as well. And the only reason they opened up China for, like, you know, the only reason they opened up China in the World Trade Organization, it is because they thought that maybe if they open up China's, you know, economy and country, China might become westernized. That's what they thought. And they thought if China becomes westernized, they can control China. That was their experiment, but it completely failed. It didn't work the way they wanted to. Now they regret it. But it doesn't matter anyway, because China would have found a way to become powerful as it is today anyway. They would have found one way or another. Anyway, that concludes the show today, guys. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care for now.